Coming to you from UBN Studios in Burbank, California. You're listening to the Unsugar-Coated Podcast with your hosts, Aalia and Alexandra Checa.
Hey everybody, this is Aalia.
And this is Alexandra.
And we're here today to bring you another amazing show. But today you don't just get us, you get an amazing guest. And I'm so happy to introduce him. We have two-time Emmy-nominated unscripted television producer, speaker, and performance coach based in Los Angeles, California, who uses his adventure and entertainment as well as his personal experience to connect with audience on a variety of topics, including leadership, emotional intelligence, and social media influence.
Phillip Andrew Barbb.
Yes, and I tripped on the TV coming on in here. This was amazing. That's how you do it gracefully.
This is how you do it gracefully.
Honestly, thank you, guys. I'm excited. This is amazing. Like, here we are with microphones in front of us, and we're about to talk and put words into audio form and video form. This is amazing. We're about to do it. I love it.
Yeah. I love this guy
Yeah,
already.
no, I told you. When we sat down and said, okay, we're gonna go over who do we want to invite, I was like, Phillip Andrew Barbb.
Oh.
You don't seem
I
to
love
understand who and I know him. I'm so lucky to know you, and we'll
thank
go
you.
into that later. But we do want to give our audience a little bit more about you. You know, you're originally from the Metro Detroit area.
Yep.
You're a graduate of Michigan State University.
Yes, go Spartans.
Through entertainment and speaking, you've worked with CBS, ABC, Fox, Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, Watch, E! Entertainment, A&E, CMT, the list goes on, as well as Pepperdine University, University of California, Irvine, UCLA, Michigan State, and the University of California. Is there someone you have not worked with? I'm just curious.
You. And I'm excited to make this happen. No, yes. I feel very fortunate. I've had a lot of opportunities to work on a lot of really great projects with some really great people. And I'm just, I'm excited to keep it going.
Yeah.
I'm excited to keep it going.
Yeah, well, you're doing a lot. You actually just recently authored your first book. Can we get an applause for that? That is not easy to do.
We do these guys. We do these guys.
Okay.
Yes, all the reasons I hate my 28-year-old boss.
That is incredible.
Is it's long. I managed to fit it all on the cover. But no, yeah, it's man, when they tell you that it's going to be harder than you think it is, and you go, yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, it's okay. It was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
As a person who's written 2 books, yes, I totally understand. I've been there, done that. And I'm actually happy to now be helping other authors, publish it. But it's a big deal. We are going to talk about that, your book. We're going to get to that in the second portion. I want to back up and talk about something that I absolutely love about you. You work in entertainment. You came here to LA. You're doing tremendous things, fantastic things, but you have a deep commitment to the community. You speak to youth. You actually go out to high schools and you're touching lives. You have a very interesting background, and I'd love for people to share what got you on that journey.
Definitely. For me, you had mentioned I kind of grew up in Metro Detroit, and I had the interesting background of, I grew up where, my father is a retired police chief, so my dad was a cop. My mother was involved in school board, and so they were fantastic. They were really, people knew them in the community. They were great parents, love them to death. I also was the youngest kid on my block and grew up with a lot of kids, and I always wanted to be cool enough, funny enough, smart enough to be able to hang out with those guys. And so I had that element of me that was like trying to be this perfect cop's kid, school board member's kid, needed to be on the honor roll, needed to be good in sports, needed to have that all buttoned up.
Sure.
But then there was the part of me that didn't want to be the cop's kid, wanted to be a knucklehead, wanted to be acting out and goofing around with my buddies and with the older kids. And so even from a very young age, I kind of had that moment where I kind of felt torn. Like I was creating I had these different masks that I would put on depending on who I was with. And the unfortunate thing with that, you do it long enough, you start to lose track of who you are. You don't even develop who you are.
Yeah.
You start just being externally, stimulated through everyone else. So for me, it was one of those things where that little bit of low key anxiety kind of lived there as I was growing up. And then when those guys were, 15, 16, 17, and they started experimenting with drinking and doing drugs, I was 11. And so I started drinking at 11 years old. And the crazy thing, and I hate to say it this way, but it was true, it was awesome. Right. There was that moment where it was like, oh my God, all these voices, all the insecurities, all the fears, all the shame, all the guilt, gone.
Man, but it's so significant that you stayed that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk, like we really want to this episode. One key thing is you have something very important to say for parents as well as for even young kids.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's super significant that you're honest because, you know, a lot of times parents, like I'm a mother of 4 and it's like people think, it's the worst thing ever. If you get drunk, this is going to happen. It's like, but are we really telling the truth? Because then they turn around and watch adults do it, right? So if it's so horrible, why are you doing it?
We've got to we have to model the correct behavior, and we have to be able to speak with our kids and be open with them, right? Like we don't have to give every juicy little detail of every little thing we ever did, right? Sure,
Right.
you know, like calm down. But there is that moment where, you know, you can, right? I heard all the messages. My dad was a cop.
Right.
I heard all of the dare messages. I saw the videos. I saw the things. And then the problem with all that is that it's a great scare tactic until you do it and you survive.
Right.
And then it's like, well, wait a minute. You told me that this was going to happen, and or not even me. I start seeing my friends do it, and I start seeing other. Wait. Now I know 15 kids that smoke weed.
Right.
Wait. Now I know these kids that they tried cocaine last weekend, and they're still here. And,
Right.
and wait a minute. Everything you guys. So can I trust anything, my parents? And that's in the second that you've lost that trust from your kid. There's already enough going on that creates a barrier with kids and parents that like parents don't need to do anything to help that out by not being honest and truthful.
Absolutely.
And
I agree.
You know, so the quick like to kind of wrap up a little bit of my story of kind of where things went. Ended up kind of had started drinking, used that as an answer. It ended up leading to got into a lot of trouble, crashed a car at 18, got arrested at 19, got arrested again at 20, had multiple fights. At one point got put in the hospital, had to get 7 staples in the back of my head. And this is all as the cop's kid.
Right.
This is all as the captain on sports teams and on the honor roll on student government, right? Like I was still achieving those things, and I had this other piece of me.
Yeah.
You know, I developed a mask. Like I was good at playing all these parts.
Yeah.
And, luckily for me, I finally got arrested one last time. And the state of Michigan thought it was a good idea for me to stop consuming alcohol. And I was court ordered into recovery programs and different things like that. And, luckily I've been, sober since, January 28th of 2008. So it's been a little over, coming up on 12 years now.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing. Congrats.
But it's like it's when I talk to the kids, it's less about, like, I never want it to be like, oh, these are cool things. Like, you have to, like, you want to be a rapper, you got to check these boxes of crimes you've committed, right? Like, it's not something that's not what I care about. But and maybe there's a kid that's not doesn't have any issues with alcohol or substances. Like, this isn't even in his brain. Right. But, like, most of us can tap in and understand the feeling not good enough.
Right.
And the feeling like we're not smart enough, or we're not attractive enough, or our body doesn't look the way that other people's does, and we don't get the attention that other people do. In that insecurity, like, I didn't have the coping skills. I must have skipped class that day when they handed those out, the coping skills.
Sure.
So that's what I try to use, is more of the emotional things that led me to do that stuff, to connect with kids, rather than just, being another Dare 2.0 guy.
Right. Okay. So according to medicinenet.com, the younger a person is when they begin drinking, the more likely they are to develop a problem with alcohol. Each year, almost 2,000 people under the age of 21 die in car crashes which underage drinking is involved. Alcohol is involved in nearly half of all violent deaths involving youth. Sorry, I can't talk, I promise. But when you look out for research on this topic, they'll say some of the family risk factors are low levels of parental supervision and communication, which we've talked about. Family conflicts, family conflicts lead to, burying your sorrows. Inconsistent or severe parental discipline, which I had to kind of take a note on that one. I'm like, because sometimes, you can be too tough. I'm a tough mom. So history of family or of alcohol or drug use. Individual, which was interesting because it highlights on what you said, problems managing impulses, emotional instability, thrill-seeking behaviors, and perceiving the risk of alcohol to be low. You didn't mention something that's quite significant. It's a bonding factor between you and I. I know you actually also, in the middle of your youth, lost your mother. Yeah,
and that was kind of a, my mother, when I was 14 years old, my mother got diagnosed with cancer. We had a year-long battle, and unfortunately, she passed away after the year. So she died a week before my 16th birthday. And, so you take a kid who already kind of has these like insecurities, already starting to experiment with alcohol and a little bit of drugs in the way of trying to, and starting to let that be a little bit of a coping thing.
Right.
And then the second that my mother was gone, it was next level because it became, there was an element where, most of us have no idea what to say to a 16-year-old kid that just lost his parent, right?
Oh, yeah.
Most of us don't know how to.
And
most
an
people
adult.
we don't know how to talk to people. We don't, Grief 101 is not a class that most of us take.
Right.
And so
Well said.
Yeah, and so I had a lot of, I've almost coined it this term of like I had rehearsed vulnerability. I knew what I needed to say, so you would stop talking to me about my mom. I knew I knew how to say. I knew if I just shut down, it would send off red flags.
Right.
So I knew how to say enough to where you thought that I was okay, and you would leave me alone. And then when I could, I would escape. And the truth is, like, I was at I was actually speaking at one of the jails in LA this week, and I go in and talk with the guys about substance abuse and my story, and I was telling them, and we talked about drinking and driving, and you brought up like thrill-seeking behavior, and I used to drink and drive all of the time, and it wasn't just a thing of like, oh, I gotta get home, like. And it also wasn't like I did a lot of dumb stuff with friends in the car, and it was like, actually holding a beer while driving. I did a lot of dumb stuff trying to be cool. But I had a lot of destructive behavior when it was just me by myself in my car at 2:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And, I think, what I've come to terms with now as an adult, and this isn't anything that I knew when I was in the middle of doing it, right? Like I wasn't conscious, like, I'm so angry that my mom is gone that I'm good. Like I had no idea why I was doing it. I thought I was just being young and dumb. But what I started to realize was the fact that I really wanted to get caught. Because I was so angry that life went back to normal.
Right.
Like when my mother died, okay, she passes away, you do the funeral, people are there, they understand, they're sympathetic, and then you've got a math quiz, okay, and then you're back, and then sports start back up, and then someone else has their parent in the audience and yours isn't there, and then but everyone else has kind of moved on, and because you have to. Right. But like for me, I was like, why does everyone get to move on?
Right, right.
And so I was angry, and so I needed to keep up that appearance. Mm-hmm. So I was still doing well in school. I was still doing well in sports. So I felt like, oh my God, I am trapped by my own mask that I've created of like this overachieving, workaholic, need to be the best attitude, when deep down, like, I'm so broken and sad and no one even sees it. And I felt like even if I were to get, like people would, compliment me or would say nice things to me, it still always had this feeling of like, you're complimenting the version I'm giving you.
Right.
And not really me at my core.
Right. So leading into, what do you try to tell parents, and when you go and have these discussions, what do you suggest for parents as well as for teens, if they are starting to say, okay, I'm going down a dangerous road here? How do we kind of help families, deal with that? Yeah,
I think one of the best things is, so many parents say, well, I tell my kid all the time that if they need to share anything with me, that I'm there. I try to always keep up the open, but they don't always want to talk to me. They want to talk to their friends. It's like, okay, so first off, when most people are going through anything stressful, who do they rely on? They don't just have a magical new person they go and talk to. They talk with the people they're continually talking with and have consistent conversations with about everything. So if you're a parent and you're not if you're not giving your kids the ability to have conversations with you, and the only conversation, if 80% of your kids' conversation are only with kids their own age, they're not learning how to communicate with adults, right? They're communicating at a kid level, which isn't progressing them. Right. And then also, if they don't feel like that it needs to be an easy conversation to
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
It
yeah.
needs to be an easy thing.
Absolutely.
So you have that. And then the other thing, a lot of times it's very, very difficult to get anyone to share anything without providing something first.
Interesting.
And so for parents, I always say it's like, we want kids to be authentic, and we want them to be vulnerable, and we want them to tell us what's really going on deep and down. And then we never show them what that looks like.
Gotcha. Right. Of course.
We never.
I say this: your kids will not grow up to say what you. They will not grow up to do what you did. Or excuse me, your children will not grow up to do what you say. They will grow up to do what you did.
So we have to model the correct behavior, and a lot of times that is, what we mentioned earlier. It's being open with your kids and telling, if your son or daughter is insecure, it's being able to share moments of when you were insecure and you were a kid and how you got. You have the luxury as a parent to know that you survived high school.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
Yeah, but you know what though? I'm not gonna lie. And this is gonna we're gonna, when we move into the other portion, because you have all this experience and now you've rolled it into this amazing book, and you now are moving to your generation and speaking to your generation and the generational divide, right? My kids, I try to talk them about an experience that I had in high school, and it's like, okay, boomer. And I'm like, and to some degree, I'm like, yes, I get it. There are things that are different, but I feel they're boomering me because I'm trying to tell you it hasn't changed that much. Yeah. Like there are still certain fundamental things that we all deal with, right? No matter what generation we're in.
Humans are humans, and we have been. That's why that there's so many great texts that have survived for thousands and thousands of years. They found this stone that had a carving in it that was a monument to the end of, it was like a monument basically saying, I'm making this monument in honor of the next generation of children who are going to be the downfall of our society because they cannot handle anything for themselves. And this is
the original boomers.
This is 1500 BC. This is thousands of years ago. It was it was this idea that the next generation is the one that's going to do it all in, I think, one thing that has been very helpful for me is it's so common. And this isn't just a parent thing. It's so common for anyone because of age and because of the way that we've been raised to look at age. It's very easy for anyone who is older to automatically kind of start to go into advice mode, or this is what you need to do.
You listen to respond.
Exactly. And I think sometimes, one of the things that I learned was treating kids and talking to them as if they're 5 years older than what they really are.
Right.
So if they're 13 years old, you treat them like 18. If they're in it, because you think of a kid who it's in school all day long, is getting talked down to by parents, getting told what to do by teachers, getting told what to do by coaches. The only people that treat them equal are their equals.
Right. And that is something that we all went through. I went through the exact same thing. And I remember standing in front of my grandfather and him telling me, oh, this, that, and the other. And in my head, I'm like, but not my friends. My friends are different.
We all think that we're different. Yeah.
Did it. So, I think those are great tips. And I want to know, so how has your past impacted your life and influenced what you're doing today, especially with regards to entertainment? Because, and other things, because you actually do speaking as well.
I know. I got to get this figured out. I got all these things I'm doing. I joke. I go. Okay. I joke. I go. I'm single. I got single and no kids. I got so much time to work on the coaching and speaking and authoring. And is authoring a word? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Is it? Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah. I knew that. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things where so much comes from my past. I think there is a thing that kind of happens with I've read this where they talk about people that lose a parent when you're younger. You kind of develop that guardian angel idea, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're always with you. You want to, and I've made sure to make sure I'm not being codependent in needing anything from that, but holding on to my mother's honor and my father and my stepmother, and making sure that am I being the type of man that I feel that they would be proud of? Yeah. Is my character in a good spot where if they knew everything that I did, they would be happy with the man that I am.
Yeah.
And in the things that they disagree with, am I okay with that being the dividing line? Am I comfortable being my own man enough to where I'm not stuck in this I have to still wear that mask or still be that be that thing? Am I making the conscious decision to be the type of man that I want to be?
Absolutely.
And I think that's and I mean the one thing, I'm glad, and thank you for bringing up the thing with my mom. What I love about it is that was a very painful, traumatic experience, right? And I wish she didn't happen the way it did, but I now get to talk about her, and I get to, in her death and her life and her death gets celebrated.
Yes.
In the ability of me to be able to share the story of her, and if her story and my story can bring any element of healing or even just momentary help or letting a kid or an adult or someone feel like that what they're going through is okay or that at least just to give that hope
in the dark. That's why I love
totally.
you. Because we get that.
Yeah, 100%. And if that's all that it is, then it's like what I would hope that I will be able to leave the type of legacy that once I'm gone, a story will still be able to bring healing and service to people.
Yeah, and it will. I always tell my kids, if I die tomorrow, I live on in you, and I mean that. And she does. She does live on in you. We live on in our parents, and so so it's. I love that you brought up masks because we're gonna actually switch. So we saw your video on One Step. If anyone happens to Google your name and go look at the One Step video, it's just this well done.
Such an amazing, well done video.
And if you do Google my name, stay on pages 1, 2, skip 3, and go right to 4. There's some weird stuff. No, okay.
So Alexandra was really, she's got some.
So I really wanted to talk about masks and about being authentic and about you talk about earning love right, through merits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that especially when you're younger, I'm not saying that things get easier when you're older, but I think that you do get to know who you are a little bit better. But when you're younger, right, you're trying to fit in, but at the same time, you're trying to be authentic and kind of go against the current, but with the current, like you don't really know, but you just want to fit in. You just want to be cool, I guess. So masks, when you talk about masks and on your Instagram, I found this really cool quote that you wrote.
Oh, nice.
That's
I'm
from
excited
you.
for it. Yes.
That's from him. And it reads, we all have insecurities and anxieties that cause us to put on our masks and create personas and tell little lies about us. That makes us human. However, the larger the gap between who you really are and who you are trying to showcase yourself as, that is where deception, sadness, loneliness, anger, and frustration lives.
And can we just get an applause for that? Because seriously, that is an amazing quote.
And I love...
Nice. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you to everyone that is in the room all of a sudden. Thank you all.
And I love that you use the word showcase. Because you're making it seem it's an actual show that you're putting every time you're in front of people.
Totally.
And so the great thing about this, I think, is that we're born with no masks, right? Like I love going to the grocery store and seeing this 3-year-old pick a wedgie in the middle of the lane, right? And you're like, gosh, you're just so you. You're true, you don't care. And obviously, as you grow up, you start putting all these masks. But the great thing is that you put them on, but you can also take them off, right? So how were you able to go from, creating all these masks for people to leave you alone so they wouldn't talk about your mom? How did you go from going from there to not having to decide who you want to be today and just being you?
Yeah. There's so many different things with that, and there's so many places I could take it. The one thing that I'll say that I've kind of realized is we start developing those masks when we're young, and we do them out of defense. We're trying to protect ourselves. Like that's really what we're doing. We're trying to protect ourselves from hurt or from shame, and that's where we start creating it, right? From either the ridicule and these things. So we start creating these masks. And the crazy thing is that we mature, but we hold on and we really lock into these masks that we created when we were little. The little us, like I had a moment where in my career, right? Like I was like having a moment where I was like, oh, I thought I would be at this point, or I thought, by the time I was 25, I'd be here or not.
Yeah.
And I had to stop. I goes, wait a minute. Like, when did I come up with that?
Right. And for everyone in the audience, how old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay. So you're still young.
Yeah.
Right.
Super young.
And so there was that moment where I was like, okay, so I'm trying to hold up this idea of who I'm supposed to be at 25 or at 30 or at whatever. And I go, and There's not a 13-year-old kid in the world I would take life advice from today. So why am I still trying to take it from 13-year-old me?
Right.
You know? And it was like, that was a realization I needed to make. And so for a lot of us, the masks that we developed, the protections that we did need them at that moment.
Right.
We needed them at 7th. At 7 years old. We needed them in 8th grade when that kid was, picking on us. The crazy thing is, and a big difference that I think a lot of times people don't realize, the difference between a kid and adult. Like, once you do get into adulthood, it really is true that nobody cares about you. Like, no one is thinking about you in that way, right? We think everyone is paying attention. They're not.
Right.
Everyone is very concerned with themselves. And now, while that is true for kids, they are thinking about each other all the time. They are so ingrained in the culture of the society, in the like they're living it every single day. The hierarchy of the school, they're in it so much stronger than what adults are.
Right.
And I think a lot of times as adults, we forget that. Like, it is an all-consuming environment to be in school.
Right.
And to just say, sometimes we give the little cliches, and without explaining them, like, kids hear it, but it doesn't really, like, how many things do you know that you were like, oh yeah, I'm now 35, and that sentence I've been hearing for the last 30 years just finally clicked.
Oh, yeah.
It just finally clicked and started making sense.
I can actually, I had 4 kids, right? It wasn't until the 4th one that I was singing Itsy Bitsy Spider, and I realized, holy crap, this is a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for life. I've been singing it all the time. I never caught it.
You've been saying it, and you didn't catch it.
And it's like, it's so true. And it's funny because the other day I was telling my daughter something in the car, and she's like, you expect me to react the same way you do. Of course, I'm like, I'm trying to empower you, and I'm trying to tell you this information. And she's like, I'm 12. I don't really care about it like that. And I understand, and it's fair when she says that to me. I get it. I'll still tell her anyway.
I'll tell you what, that's some insight from her.
But it is.
Like,
she
that's amazing.
My kids, you've met some of them. They're smart, and but like my kids are very mature for their ages, but I think a lot of kids are, and it does mean a lot to go back and remember where we came from and what we once dealt with. Yeah. So kind of moving into also your book, because I want you to discuss how your book speaks to some of the generational issues that we see today, and how you've been able to take all of this and pack it into that.
Yeah, it's I think we're in a very interesting and exciting time with the workplace.
Right.
We are in an instance where you have 4 generations of people working together. Right. You have people that are working deeper into their 60s, into their 70s, like we've never seen before. We have more differences of cultures of when people were raised, how they different. Like, there are differences between generations.
Absolutely.
Like to assume that they're not is just denying certain facts, right?
Progression in general in existence.
So there was differences there. Also, the fact of, and I think one of the reasons that I kind of latched onto this topic of ageism in the workplace was I had to realize, like, I was obsessed with age. Like, with the idea of, where am I going to be at 25?
Right.
What do I need to make at 30? Wait a minute, why does that person do that? Like, I'm older, I should have more. Like, the entitled, it all was there. And I think a lot of people were also raised on that idea of, the more, you do your job, you climb the ladder, opportunities will come to you. With time is going to come more responsibility. And then all of a sudden, like, one day you walk in and your boss is 28 years old. And it's like, what just happened? Like, why did this kid get to cut the line? Like, and it can be such a massive, it's such a hard pill for a lot of people to be able to swallow. Yeah,
because that was a question, Alexandra. We said, we read the title, All the Reasons I Hate My 28-Year-Old Boss. And Alexandra,
I was like, wait, does he have a 20-year-old boss? What's happening? Like, where does
he hate him?
Yeah.
Yeah, does he hate him?
So the book is actually, I'd like to believe that there's a lot of great information in the book for all ages. Anyone that's ever, basically, if you've ever worked with somebody that was difficult, this book is going to be able to help you out, right?
Perfect.
There's a lot of the information that is going to be geared more towards the 35 to 55-year-old, and specifically people that are now having to work more with millennials, work more with the younger generation, and we just in being able to have that gap and understanding how to navigate the workplace and the different personalities.
Sure.
So here's the thing, it is not a You could throw it in the business self-help world, but it's fun. Like I wanted it to be a fun read. Wow. It's going to be a quick one. It'll take people probably like 3.5 hours to get through, right?
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
It's something that they can get through. It's fun. It's entertaining. But there are going to be a lot of different insight in the book, and also some exercises that will help people that are struggling with maybe a younger boss or if there's nepotism in the workplace, if it's just a youth-driven, youth-focused environment that they're working in,
right.
This will be able to kind of give them some different tools that they can apply so that they can enjoy and kind of regain a lot of the power over their workplace.
Right. It's funny because when I first started working in the workplaces, I definitely was still in the you remember the movie 9 to 5, Dolly Parton era, where you came in and it was just your office, it was a desk or it's a cubicle. And then Google came along, and I'm from the Bay Area. So when I first started working, the few corporate gigs I had in my younger years, it was like suddenly, oh yeah, the 4th floor has a lounge and a video, Nintendo in there and things. And it's like, and the older people are like, whoa.
Company culture.
Like, we're like,
company culture.
Changing, right? I'm like, you're chilling. I'm over here busting my butt off. So interesting. So do you, like when you talk about the changes, you're absolutely right. There are changes 100% that are happening within our culture, and we should try to embrace them. And that's where I get mad when my kids call me boomer. I'm like, because I'm really not saying, I'm not the one saying, I recognize that there's always been differences. So how do we adapt and how do we work together? And for people, if you're listening, I have to tell you a personal experience with this young man right here. I got the opportunity to have him host my event, EmpowerCon, which we held in Los Angeles at the, there's a photo of us for the people who can see it. We were, he was my host. There we are, his handsome face. And our other friend, Neelab. And he's got such an amazing personality. So anyways, when you and I got connected by a mutual friend, I invited you to be the host. And from day one, you showed such amazing commitment. The way you're so very organized. I can only imagine how amazing your book is. And I can't wait to read it, by the way, because you majorly influenced this event. We had people that came there. It was a first-time event. It was a launch event. They didn't know what to expect. And having you lead the charge was the most, I'm just so lucky and blessed. And the response that came from people were, hairs on their arms standing up. You left people feeling so welcomed, so educated, and just so guided and inspired. And I loved it because it wasn't just the speakers that we had engaged. I mean, you yourself were in kind of I wanted you to be, and you did so amazing. So I can only imagine how impactful this book can be, because that's just what you do, impact other people's lives, in my personal experience.
And I greatly, and thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And that's just one of the things that I've always, I was honored when you asked me and being able to get up there and kind of lead for everybody. And
but you did. He was so awesome. He was like, Alexandra, he's like, Aalia, if it's just you and I up there, we're going to have the best freaking EmpowerCon ever, okay?
Right?
And thankfully it wasn't, but I mean, he was ready. He was committed fully.
I think it was one of those things where I've firsthand experienced the gifts of, I've received so much in my life from people that didn't owe me anything. I've received so much from strangers and so much from, people in program or people on set that poured into me and just freely gave me so much information and care and love and support. And it's like, I feel so blessed that I've been given that from so many different people that it's like, I don't know why I would ever want to be any other way than just trying to mimic. And we talk about modeling, like when you see people model behavior that you want, like that, that's why I do those things, because I'm so inspired by the people that live that way.
Right.
You know? And so, that young little kid in me, that's entitled and is angry and is frustrated and is sad, like that kid can be there.
Right.
Like, a lot of, philosophers over time that, they've called it the dark side, right? Like the dark side, the shadow side, whatever you want to call it, like that's there.
Right.
And I've learned that, like, for me to be able to live a fulfilled life, like service and gratitude absolutely need to be pillars in everything that I do. And so being able to be there and connect with people and just tell the stories. And then I had a great seat. I had a front row on stage. I had a front, you put together an amazing panel. Like, we had great speakers, but you put together such an incredible panel. And I think so many people took so much away from that. And actually, I ended up, because you got so much feedback about that. Was like some people, that was their favorite thing, was the panel and hearing how people interacted. Mm-hmm. I then took that to some of the other groups that I belong to, and I was like, yo, I had an event coming up like a month and a half afterward, and I was like, we need to have a panel.
Right.
Because it's so much, and I think it's why people love conversations like this.
Right.
Why they love podcasts, being able to hear people's real insight. We're so used to being sold to.
Yeah.
And we're so used to seeing the perfection of social media or what a marketing campaign is. And this is exactly how we're going to talk to you about this thing, and you're going to really buy it. And look at how good this is. And we're so used to it that, like, we're almost, I hate to say this, it almost feels like in a lot of ways we're starved for the authenticity of people.
Yeah.
Like, we want people to
But
be
like,
real.
For real.
For real, for real. Not like, all right, everyone, I'm about to get real. And then I'm going to tell you something else. Like, being actually real and genuine. And I think that's why people love podcasts like this. It's like you just get to drop in on a conversation. And so thank you for those kind words.
And do you feel that your book is something it's intended to bring these generations together? Because I feel like that's...
for me, I think that, I even joked, right? Like, here's the thing. I'm a millennial that wrote a book for baby boomers almost. Like, it's like, how much more millennial can you get than a millennial trying to teach baby boomers how to behave in the workplace? It's like, it's almost obnoxious. And I've even told people, I was like, if you want to make fun of me for it, like, I'll accept it. Just give me a couple of hours.
No, I'm going to give you credit for trying to bridge the gap.
And I'm like, and at least read a couple chapters.
Yeah.
And I feel confident that, like, I know where my heart is at, and like my heart is that we're all connected. One of the most beautiful things, like, when I was raised to respect my elders, and I respected you enough to where I wouldn't push you down the stairs, but I didn't think you had anything for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm 18, I'm 20, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, you don't know what it's like to be this age now. Like, I don't care if you were older. Like, they're, blah blah blah. And then I got to program, and I got into a 12-step, and I started just listening to people share. And I started listening to a 45-year-old guy talk about emotions that I felt. And I started listening to a 65-year-old woman describe the insecurities that she had. And I would hear the 75-year-old guy that had 25 years sober, or the 75-year-old guy that had just gotten sober and realized that he's been struggling for years. And I started to see, I got taught, and I'm so grateful for this, like, don't seek out the differences. Find the similarities.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Don't compare yourself with people. Relate with people.
Exactly.
And when I started to do that, and I realized it, it's like the only thing that's different is just a couple of years in between when we were born.
Yeah.
That's it. We're all still here. We're part of the same team.
Hence why Aalia and I are friends.
I mean, it's like we are all here. We all have something to learn from each other, right? Like, whether it's like getting energy from somebody else, or seeing how they live, or learning a tactic you didn't know, like,
or reminding us. Because for some people who are older, like you say, we got to be reminded. I mean, I'm not, but I'm 44. And, it's interesting because for both of you guys, what I thought at 27, 33, 24, vastly different still from even today. You guys, we all are still hopefully going to continue to grow, but you'll grow even more. And that's amazing. I just read an article this morning about they had the guys up in Antarctica for a year. And I guess they literally did scans of their brains. And after a year of being in the Antarctica, their brains have shrunk from not seeing, when you just look out at white ice every day.
You're just seeing the same thing.
You're just seeing, and you're only seeing the same people, and you're inside. Your brain suffers. So it actually helps us biologically, physically, to see different things, have experiences, have conversations, and younger people can remind us a thing or two about what it was once when we were a little bit less, careful and a little less anxious.
One thing that kind of, as you're saying that, it brings up is like, we've talked so much about masks, and it's like, there was a moment we developed the mask, and we didn't just develop it for the fun of it. We developed it because it was a necessity in whatever moment we thought we were in where we needed that mask for protection, right? There's an element of, like, our brains, right? They call it like the reptilian brain or whatever, like the survival brain, where it was like, I am in the jungle. I immediately walk into an environment. What is in this environment? Okay, that's a tree. That's a this. I need to stereotype and put things into their boxes because I need to immediately realize, like, am I in danger?
Right. Yeah. Right.
The second that you realize, okay, Like the fight or flight mechanism has now chilled. You're safe. Now we need to, the mature thing that we need to do is step into that moment and be like, all right, this is all the things I categorized. How do I get more information now about them if those categories are correct, right? So the problem is that what we do is a lot of times we stereotype people and we go, young, old, black, white, this is who they are, this is who, right? Like, yeah, this. And then we go, cool, I'm good with that. And then we leave our lives and we think that was the truth. Yeah. When all that was just a superficial protection mechanism.
Right.
So what we have to then do is, like, one of the big things of the book, and it's not the only secret. So you have to read it. No, but it's like in there, it's one of those things of asking questions with one another, learning about your boss, learning what's going on in their life. Like, let them be a real human, right? We're not going to be best friends with every single person that we work with. Right. And that's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But you can understand, like, what somebody, what's going on in their life, right? Like, I think we've talked before. One of my close buddies, I saw him this morning. His name is Anthony Powell, and he's an amazing man, and he's a pastor. And he said one time to me, he goes, "Man, hurt people."
Right.
And it's so simple, but it's so true. Like, when I see people that are, if they're being angry or frustrating or being, if they're acting a certain type of way that I want to say that's not how you should be behaving, and I want to judge it. So, well, why are they being that way?
Absolutely.
Like, what's going on?
Right. Our last episode, we talked about toxic relationships. And, when you're dealing with toxic people, absolutely. And exactly, there's usually a reason behind people's toxic behavior. Yeah. Often we take it as us, but,
we're just mirrors. We're just mirrors for people. And it's so a lot of times when we have, I experienced this a lot when I got sober, right? Like, at 22, you get sober, and, like, there's not a lot of other 22-year-olds that are sober. Exactly. But for the most part, like, a lot of my friends knew I was wild and I was crazy at the time, right? So most people were really supportive. Mm-hmm. There were a handful of people that weren't. There were a handful of people that pushed back and were like, well, what do you mean, dude? Like, you're only 22. Like, what? You think you got a problem with alcohol? Like, there's other people. I know guys that drink more than you. I get drunk every weekend. Right? All this stuff, right? Not at 2 years sober, 3 years sober, 5 years sober, and not in the early 20s. But as I got in my later 20s, as I got into my 30s, more and more of those people that were so resistant to me have reached out and asked for help.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it's because there was something. They didn't have the resistance to me not drinking. Right. It was they didn't like the idea that somebody wasn't going to, because it made them reflect on what they had. Right. Yeah. I experienced the same thing. I told a story the other day about a guy. There was this guy named Zach, who, really fun guy. This is me in college. Fun guy, good looking guy, played rugby, really, just a great guy. And I remember being at a party and he wasn't drinking. And it ruined my entire night. Like, I was so angry at this kid that he got to be cool and fun and people wanted to be around him and he didn't need alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was because I knew there was something underneath all my stuff, you know? And so a lot of times it is that we are just, the way that people treat us, a lot of times it says a lot more about how they feel about themselves than about how they feel about us.
All the time. I mean, most of the time it's exactly what we said. All right, listen, you're amazing. We could be here all day long and talk to you. And, we might have to have you back on again once we get that book. But we have a couple questions for you, as you know. Now, these are our rapid fire questions. Rapid fire. I love it. I'm excited. It's only 5. So real quick, I do just want to say, for those of you that are listening and are still here and have been hanging out with us this whole time, thank you guys so much for, I don't know where I should look, probably in the camera. But no, thank you guys. And I hope you guys will, like this and share this with some of your friends and get the word out. So thank you guys. There's a little PSA. Cool. We're going to have you give, after the rapid fire, Alexandra's going to wrap up. We're going to have you mention where they can get your book and everything and find you. Oh, yeah. So, number 1, who is your favorite superhero and why? My dad. Oh, that's awesome. We don't need to know the why then. Yeah. We know why. We know why. That's amazing. Biggest pet peeve?
He's like, crickets?
No, biggest pet peeve?
Crickets, yeah.
I hate those crickets, man. Those crickets. Like, there was supposed to be a quick fire, and I was supposed to give a quick answer. You know what? I think it's just like I think it's like a lack of maybe just like a lack of empathy. for others.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Because there are people who definitely struggle
I
with
think that's called being an asshole, right?
Huh? You know what? But I don't know, because look, I was an asshole for a lot of years of my life, and I still have moments. So
I definitely still.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I still have moments.
Try to limit them, but
I'm trying to let them. Yeah.
Okay. Best song title that describes your love life.
I knew it. He was gonna like this one. Crickets again.
Oh my goodness, Bess. Oh, are you doing like cricket sound effects, man?
Yeah, here, listen. Do it again.
Dang, dude! I thought we were cool. I thought we were gonna be friends. I thought
Shay is our team.
He's just trying to kill time.
Hold on. Say it one more time.
Best song title that describes your love life.
Gangster's Paradise.
Oh. All right.
Wow. Okay. Now I have to go listen to the lyrics.
I already know it. I just started playing it in my head.
I mean, right.
Can you believe when I was younger, that song was very popular? So I was in my car, my Toyota Corolla with all the windows down. Okay, so anyways, I know
that's good.
Okay, house is on fire. What 2 things do you go back in and grab? That's
obviously not family, right? So if I'm running in, what am I getting? I feel like I'm getting... I hate to say it, you got to get your computer because there's so much attached to that.
Don't feel guilty for that.
And if I'm going in and I'm going to get it, man, everything is so easily replaced. Anything that is really, you can replace almost anything.
Hard drive.
I'll put all the electronics into one little category. You know what? I have my sister made me a photo album of. She took our childhood photo album and she turned it into like a digital copy. And when this is the craziest thing, I know it's a rapid fire question. You guys, this is so amazing. I love this. My mother, from the time I was 0 until 10, wrote me and my sister. She wrote us birthday cards that were addressed to the adult versions of us.
Oh, wow.
That were like wrap-ups of like what happened that year.
That is so cool. You just gave like every parent an amazing idea.
And it was like, and I always say that to I say that to my friends that have young kids, like, if you can do this, because you don't, like, my mother passed away just a couple years after she stopped doing that. Right. She never got to actually give them to me. She never got to meet the adult version of me, you know? And so, and I never got to meet her as an adult.
Right.
And so, but I have these letters or these notes that she gave me in one for, when I turned 1, when I turned 2, when I turned 3, and my sister took these and she digitized them and put them in that book. Wow. So I have them. And so I have this, like, that's really the only real conversation that I have with my mother to me as an adult. So
right.
That's beautiful.
So what is the one thing on your bucket list that is waiting to be checked off? What is one thing on your bucket list that is waiting to be checked off? Just give us one.
That's waiting to be checked off. I want to be able to speak. I want to speak to like a crowd of like 10,000.
Yay. Okay. Well, I anticipate you'll be doing that in the very near future. Yeah. So really quick, please tell people where they can find you for our audio. Go ahead and say your Instagram.
Definitely. The website is phillipandrew.co. Yeah, phillipandrew.co, not .com. And then you can find the book on Amazon, All the Reasons I Hate My 28-Year-Old Boss, on Amazon. Also on social media, you can find me at Phillip Andrew LA. Or if you still like sending emails, phillipandrewla@gmail.com. And I promise you I will get back to you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Well, I'm just gonna say, people, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Go to www.unsugarcoatedmedia and be part of our Unsugarcoated community. Alexandra, thank you so much for helping me today.
Thank you so much.
I was like chugging water as the camera came back. I'm like, Thank you. And thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time.
Awesome.
Well, I think you were going to wrap it up with an amazing quote.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up with my favorite quote of all time. And this has to do a lot with your story and wearing masks and being authentic. It says, "Every creature has its rightful place, and in that place, it becomes beautiful."
And I love that.
Wow.
So, thank you everyone for joining us. Be sure to keep coming to the next. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Unsugar Coated Podcast with your hosts, Aalia and Alexandra Checa.